Hey YouTube, back with another Zen video. One that I didn't originally plan on making, but felt like I needed to get my point out after listening to First Touch today. Now, if you guys don't know what First Touch is, it is a podcast that is put on the Rocket League channel with normally Dazarin, Roldiz, and T-Bates, but today Johnny Boy taking over for Roldiz, and they also had Stumpy, an RLCS caster, and Rise, a player for BDS, on the podcast. Now, one of the questions that came up was, has Zen lived up to the hype? Or based on his events up till now, most notably the regional in which he won, did he live up to the hype? Now, I thought this was an easy question. I was expecting across the board everyone to just say a quick yes, but I was wrong. The majority of the people on the podcast said no, he didn't live up to the hype, and went on to attempt to explain it, which I think is absurd, and I'm going to get into that today, why I think it's absurd and why I think we need to stop thinking this way and putting it out into the universe this way, because we're in such a special time. So anyways, the reason that they said Zen did not live up to the hype is because even though his team won every game they played, or not every game, that'd have been insane. I would hope that if they won every single game, they would at least say that he lived to the hype. But no, they won every single match. They went to Game 5 in the early rounds, and then they went to Game 7 in the grand final, but ultimately, they didn't lose a series. But they're saying Zen wasn't his team's best player, clearly. And because he wasn't his team's best player, clearly, he therefore didn't live up to the hype, because the hype is so incredibly astronomical. Now, to me, I don't think that that's the case. An Arsenal and a Chronic as well, I posted on Twitter at how frustrated I was with people saying that he hasn't lived up to the hype, and both Arsenal of SSG and a Chronic of Liquid responded that they also think he hasn't lived up to the hype for the same reasons, because he isn't clearly the best player in the world immediately after one regional. Now, one of the things I want to ask these people who are saying this, was there anything that Zen could have done? They're implying that there was, but I'm starting to think that there couldn't have been. Maybe if Alpha 54 and Radisson, his teammates, just looked awful and he had to do absolutely everything, and then his team still won, maybe then they would say that he lived up to the hype. But you can't blame Zen for having good teammates, and you can't blame him for winning Rocket League, which is what he's done. He's exclusively played winning Rocket League since he joined the scene. Now, his 1v1 streak was insane, and I'm not even including that. As obvious as that is to us who played ones, that this is such a great player, or not who played ones, but watch it, we're pushing that out of our minds. Instead, we can think about the 3 recent tournaments. I say 3, some people are going to not count a couple of these, but he played in a tournament called the Odyssey, I believe, which had EU bubble teams as well as some RLCS teams. Did not drop a series with his team there. Also played in the Gamers 8 qualifier, Gamers Without Borders, which included 2v2 and 1v1, and he also didn't drop a series there, even though a tournament like that certainly plays to Zen's strengths a lot more. But my point in why we should be celebrating a player like this is he hasn't lost yet. He has lived up to the hype in every way. We have seen prodigies before who come out and maybe even play more spectacular according to, their individual style, but don't win as consistently. It's one of the reasons why we love Vatira so much, and why everybody agrees Vatira is the best player in the world, is because even though he has tournaments where people are saying, especially when he's back on Moist, that Rise would outplay him at lands, etc., everybody still had Vatira as that best player, because what does Vatira do? He wins, and he's proved that when he's moved over to Carmine Corp, and he's continued to win there. And that's just what Zen has done. He's just won. He's exclusively won. He never loses. How could you say he hasn't lived up to the hype yet? And look, he might eventually lose. Don't get me wrong. That's a nutty shot, by the way, by Zen. But for now, he hasn't. So I think we need to all just be reveling in the fact that we are living out a storyline right now. We're living out a storyline that doesn't happen very often. And the one I keep thinking of in my head, because professional sports, the ones I follow, is mostly the NBA, is I think of LeBron. I think it's a fair comparison to talk about the level of hype that LeBron had and the fact that he's lived up to it, and it's been such an amazing, time as a fan to watch a dominant player like that absolutely live up to the unbelievable hype. To me, that's what Zen is doing right now, and we should all just be excited in it and not nitpick about how he didn't do quite enough, especially because I feel like Rocket League has one of the tougher times to analyze individual play. Like, one of the biggest things that we have to do is we have to just assign wins. I don't know if you guys have seen the couple stats, the Octane rating and the EPM that maybe you've seen for different players or teams. But Octane rating, which tried to use like goals, assists, that kind of stuff to get player ratings, looked so far off of what we'd expect based on the eye test because it didn't account enough for wins that EPM was created, which just shifts everything compared to wins. It's almost just directly correlated to just, did you win? All right, you get a high rating. There's some differences. And to be fair, the EPM did have Alpha 54 as Vitality's best player, but it had Zen in the top 6. I believe he was 6, number 6, Zen. And another thing that I want to point out too, before this video is going to have to end, because we're just going to do it during this one replay, which has 30 more seconds, is Vitality wasn't some massive tournament-winning team every single time they played and stuff before Zen joined. This roster had not won a regional. This roster not long ago, well, I think it was the exact same roster, but Vitality missed the events. They missed a regional earlier this season, and now they play one event with Zen and they win. This is a magical moment for Rocket League fans, and it's the kind of moment that will get more people excited about the esport who don't know anything about it. This is what pulls people in. Stories about crazy performers like Zen who are changing the game. So let's get excited about it. Let's not nitpick whether or not he played absolutely perfectly in every single way. His car had 300% boost, Let's just say Zen hasn't lost yet. And until he loses, can we please just acknowledge that he's lived up to the hype?